Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to talk about substrates. I've been getting a lot of questions about, hey, which substrate do you use for a certain tank, or why do you use certain, substrate for your fish tank and whatnot. So I just wanted to kind of clarify a couple of things, but everything honestly depends on the purpose and the aesthetic that you're going for. In this case, as you can see in my 20-gallon tank that I have here, with all my, all prized crayfish tank, I do have a substrate that's actually a floor matting. It's a plastic fake grass floor matting, and the reason that I have this mat is because this tank doesn't exactly have a purpose in terms of like growing any algae or plants, so I don't need anything to hold down any plants. And plus, I don't necessarily need to make this tank so difficult to clean. By that I mean, this tank actually gets cleaned very often and gets maintained in, very clean way. So the best way for me to clean this tank is to actually have it without any substrate. So I did actually have I had this tank without a substrate, like as you can see on this side. This guy doesn't have any substrate, just walking around the glass. But I saw this rather sad with these guys. They, since the glass is very smooth, these guys can't exactly walk too well and don't seem to be, doing too well. And aesthetically, it was just whatever. So I just decided to think of something to cover the flooring so these guys can actually walk around a little better, and to uplift the mood and the coloring and everything. I came up with an idea. What if I use, fake plastic floor mat as their substrate? And this actually worked out really well. The substrate, the matting actually fit perfectly, the width and the lengthwise of this tank. It's a little short on this side, but that's fine. And having, in terms of purpose, this tank doesn't actually serve, like I said, any purpose to plant any live plants, so I don't need any sand or any solutions to be planted under the sediment. So it's perfectly fine that I have it like this, and I just need this tank to be cleaned out efficiently. So I just take the water out and put the water in, and I need the water flow to be going throughout the tank, which this substrate definitely does that. By that I mean it has a bunch of holes, and it's a little spaced. You can't actually see, but it's a little spaced out from the bottom layer of the glass to this matting. So the water flow throughout this tank is very consistent. It's very easy for me to clean. And so that's the same as with the tank underneath. It has the same green matte flooring, so I can clean easy. That's basically the whole purpose. I wanted to clean this tank very easily and make sure the water, I don't have to actually care about the water quality as much compared to the other ones. And if we move on to the 75-gallon tank that I have, as you guys already know, this is more like a tropical community fish tank that house all my guppies. As you can see, they're doing really well. And some of my rams, my blue rams over there, they're doing really well. And then a bunch of my adult crayfishes. So this tank in particular, I have gravel as a sediment substrate, basically the flooring, whatever you want to call it. And the reason is because I do have a lot of decorations that I had to fixate on part of this tank, throughout part of this tank. So as you can see in the corner, I do have greeneries over there, and then I do have tunnels around, and I have these larger logs that needs to be held in place, as you can see, with some rocks and all of these decorations. And using a lot of decoration means that you need a certain size of gravel, or certain amount of gravel or sediment, sand, whatever it may be. In this case, in order for me to place this log in its place, I need something to hold it in place, such as rock. But definitely the gravels really help. I mean, I could use sand, which I will show you in a couple of minutes when I finish explaining this tank. I could use sand for this tank. However, here's the thing. As you guys already know, this tank contains a lot of adult crayfishes. That means they do breed throughout, and they mate and they breed, and then they give birth to the youngs. And those little tiny baby crayfishes are very small. like these guys when they're born as babies, they are anywhere from 2 to 3 millimeters big, which is really tiny. And that means they require a lot of places to hide. If I give you an example, so I do have baby crayfishes in here that were born couple days ago, and they're very tiny. Let me find you a good example here. There he is. You see that little one? I don't know if you can actually see it, but that little tiny one. So it's that size, the size of basically a plastic leaf. So they're very small. And in order for them to survive in this massive 75-gallon tank, they need a lot of hiding spaces. And these crayfishes give birth to anywhere from 50 to 300, 400 babies. And these guys will require a lot of hiding spaces. Sand can't exactly provide such hiding space on the floor. And these, like I said in my previous videos, these guys don't exactly swim, but they walk around like this. So the hiding space needs to be provided throughout the tank for the baby crayfishes. And these gravels provide those hiding spaces. Like, they definitely provide spaces in between the gravel for these little tiny crayfishes to hide, which is great. You know, when these adult crayfishes walk around, where are they going to hide? They're very slow, they're tiny, they basically don't know anything about this world. So, you know, they need instant hiding place, and the gravel helps that. That's really good. And this tank necessarily doesn't have any live plants, so I don't need any what's it called, like live plant helping pills to be, you know, covered on the floor. So I don't necessarily need a sand sediment. I don't know if that made sense, but yeah, so that's the reason why I'm using gravel in this 75-gallon tank. And let's move on to this 20-gallon tank that I have here, which I'm sure you guys have already seen before. So on this side of the tank, of 25-gallon tank right here, I am breeding snails right now. And as you can see on the flooring, it's actually sand, sediment. And this tank doesn't actually have any plants in it, except for this side. I do have some live plants there. I don't know the name of it, but that's a live plant. And I do have a wall filled with algae. So in this case, I am using a sand as my substrate in this tank, and the reason is because I didn't start this tank off as anything but a crayfish breeding tank. So when adult crayfish gets buried, I move them into this tank, and when it gives birth, all the baby crayfishes grow in this tank until a certain size, and I move them into a different tank. But you know, the purpose of this tank has changed. What I am going to do is actually I'm going to make this tank into a plant tank. I'm gonna buy a lot of live plants and then put them in these empty spaces over here. So right now I'm just setting the water for those plants. So in order for me to plant those like small size plants, I don't need any bigger gravels to plant them, but I definitely need sand to fixate them in certain part of the tank. So when you do have live plants in your fish tank, it's definitely recommended that you use sand instead of gravel. You can definitely use gravel, however, you're gonna need to use a lot of gravel, which then will cause your tank to be, you know, heavier than using other sediment. Which I don't know. It honestly depends on, you know, what kind of, you know, like where you have your tank placed at or on top of, if it can actually hold the weight. And in my case, don't exactly think this casing that I have can hold too much weight, so sand is the best way. Also, you know, since sand is really small particle compared to gravel, it contains much more nutrients. When you leave it with right amount of, you know, fishes or crayfishes, they get, you know, they settle down on the floor, and then they create a good nutrient source for the plants. So there's definitely different purposes and reasonings to why you should use different substrates. And I would recommend, for example, if you're gonna have live plants and smaller creatures and want to fixate certain small live plants in certain places, I would recommend sand. However, if you have a larger tank that you have, you know, just larger objects in it and you just need to hold a couple of things down, then I would recommend gravel instead and some rocks for, you know, for cleaning purposes, as well as just placing things down and making sure that you provide hiding spaces if you do have, babies growing in your fish tank. So definitely recommend different sediments for different purposes. And however, if you're looking to do anything like breeding like myself that I do here in this tank, you can have actually a bottomless tank. Like you can have a tank without any substrate. However, if you want some kind of aesthetic like me, then I would go for something light and easy cleaning, easily cleanable, like a flooring such as this plastic mat, which provides good flow underneath the mats, as well as some hiding spaces for whatever you keep. And it's very aesthetically not too bad. It's better than having nothing actually. So I definitely recommend you choose the right substrate for your fish tanks. Definitely good aesthetic for your tank is what you want, I'm sure. So yeah, pick and choose what you need. And thank you for watching. If you guys have any questions on sediments, substrates, whatever regarding this flooring, definitely let me know in the comment section and I'll try my best to answer your questions. And if you like the video, definitely like the video and then subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video, guys. See ya!